I followed my wife to a hotel. Not the start of a romantic getaway, but the end of our marriage. It started with the scent of lavender, a fragrance I'd never liked. But one, Sophia, adored. She was always bringing home new candles or sprays claiming they added warmth to the house. But this time, the smell wasn't in our home. It was on her. A faint, sweet scent clinging to her coat. When she came back from working late, 3 nights in a row. At first, I didn't say anything. I told myself it was paranoia, yet I couldn't help but notice how her phone had become permanently glued to her hand. Always flipped, face down on the counter. Her laugh was louder, more genuine, but it wasn't directed at me or the kids. It was directed at something on that screen. She'd slip into our bedroom for 20 minutes, and come out, dressed like she was auditioning for a role I didn't remember casting. She brushed off my raised eyebrows with excuses that grew thinner. Each time, big presentation. She'd say applying red lipstick in front of the mirror. Clients like a polished look. I tried to believe her, but her company sold software. No one was judging lipstick through a conference call. Then, one Saturday morning, she walked into the kitchen wearing an oversized sweater I didn't recognize new. I asked, gesturing at it. "It's old." She snapped a shot for such a casual question. You just never notice anything that line her go-to weapon. When she needed to deflect, stung more than usual. The truth was, I had started noticing everything. Sophia's sudden affection for lavender was just one piece of the puzzle. Her behavior shifted like she was juggling 2 scripts, struggling to keep her lines straight. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't prove it. The turning point came on a Sunday morning. Sophia claimed she was meeting her sister for brunch. I knew her sister was out of town. Sophia had complained, lied about it just days earlier. "Which place are you meeting her at?" I asked casually, pretending to scroll on my phone. "The Green Fig," she replied, without missing a beat, naming a trendy cafe. I smiled to myself. I'd already called the Green Fig that morning. No reservations under her name or her sister's. I followed her. It wasn't hard. She wasn't expecting it. Her car led me to a hotel just outside town. Not the kind of place you'd book for a romantic getaway. Cheap and forgettable. The kind of place where people check in under fake names. My stomach clenched as I watched her park and walk inside, like she owned the place. No hesitation. No glancing over her shoulder. I waited for 20 minutes debating whether I had the stomach to go in. Finally, I did. The man at the front desk barely looked up when I entered, his indifference working in my favor as I scanned the small lobby. My heart sank. A lavender scarf hung off the back of a chair near the vending machines. I didn't need to see more when I got home. I didn't cry or yell. I didn't even drink, though. I wanted to. Instead, I packed a bag for myself and one for the kids. I didn't fold her laundry or clean the dishes she'd left in the sink. I didn't leave a note by the time she walked through the door. The next morning, smelling of lavender and looking smug, we were gone. The kids and I were settled at my brother Liam's place by the time Sophia realized we weren't coming back. Liam wasn't thrilled about the sudden intrusion, but when he saw my face, his usual sarcasm disappeared. "You good?" he asked, handing me a beer as the kids disappeared into the living room with his old Xbox note. I said, flatly, "I will be." My phone buzzed on the counter. Her name lit up the screen. I stared at it for a second, then let it go to voicemail. She called again, and again. By the 5th time, Liam raised an eyebrow. "You going to answer that?" "Not yet," I replied, sipping the beer instead. I waited. I wanted her to feel the same unease I'd been carrying for weeks when her texts started rolling in. They went from mildly concerned to furious, in record time. "Ethan, where are you? Where are the kids? This isn't funny. Answer me." I still said nothing an hour later. My phone rang again, but this time it wasn't her number against my better judgment. I picked up. "Ethan." Sophia's voice was shrill, frantic. "What the hell is going on? Where are you? Why aren't you answering your phone? New number already?" I asked, coolly. Didn't think you'd go nuclear this fast. Don't play games with me. She snapped. Where are my kids? Her kids. The words stung. But I kept my tone steady. They're fine. They're with me. She let out a sharp breath somewhere between relief and irritation. You can't just take off like that. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? I laughed bitterly. Are you serious right now? I have no idea what you're talking about, she said, her voice laced with faux innocence. You're acting like a lunatic. Did something happen at work? Are you stressed? Cut the act, Sophia, I said, my voice rising. I saw you at the hotel. There was a pause just long enough for her mouth to crack. What the hell were you doing? Following me. She spat, her voice shifting to anger, not the reaction of someone with nothing to hide. I shot back. Her silence was deafening. I packed up and left because I'm done playing the idiot in your little soap opera. I continued. I don't know who he is. I don't care. But you're not going to lie to my face and pretend everything's fine. You're overreacting, she said, her tone suddenly dismissive. That hotel was for a client meeting business, Ethan. But of course, you're so insecure. You can't even trust me. Insecure. I barked out a humorless laugh. Lavender perfume. Hotel rooms. Disappearing for hours. And you think this is about my insecurity? I don't have time for this. She snapped. Bring the kids home or I'm calling the police. Go ahead, I said. My voice. I scolded. Tell them you abandon your family for a business meeting. See how that plays out. She hung up, and I stared at the phone in my hand for the first time. I wasn't scrambling for answers. She was, and I wasn't done making her squirm. The silence after Sophia hung up didn't last long. Less than an hour later, there was a knock at Liam's door. It wasn't a polite, tentative tap, but a sharp, relentless pounding that echoed through the house. Want me to handle this? Liam asked, standing and cracking his knuckles. No, I said. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. My chest felt like a coiled spring, ready to snap. I opened the door and there she was. Sophia stood on the porch, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her face was flushed, not with worry, but with fury. You've lost your mind, she said, pushing past me into the house without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes scanned the room until they landed on the kids. Mommy. Her youngest called, running toward her. Sophia knelt down, plastering on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Hi, baby. Mommy. Missed you so much. Her voice was syrupy, sweet, a nauseating act, meant to disarm. She hugged both kids tightly, whispering promises. I couldn't hear the moment they were distracted. Her head snapped toward me and the mask fell away. We're going home now, she hissed. Not happening, I said, crossing my arms. You can drop the act, Sophia. This isn't your stage anymore. She took a step closer, her eyes narrowing. You're seriously doing this in front of the kids? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? I shot back, incredulous. That's rich. Coming from someone sneaking around. Hotels and lying through her teeth. Her eyes darted to Liam, who was leaning casually against the wall, watching the exchange, like it was his favorite Netflix drama. Do you mind giving us some privacy? She snapped. I actually do, Liam said, not moving an inch. This is my house after all, and I'm not about to let you spin whatever fairy tale you've cooked up. She glared at him, then turned back to me. You're being paranoid, she said, her tone adopting a softer, condescending edge. You're stressed. Ethan, you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking clearer than I have in months, I said, and I'm done playing dumb. You want to talk about being stressed? Let's talk about what you've been doing behind my back. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. You really think I'd throw away 10 years of marriage and 2 kids for what, a fling? Is that what you're accusing me of? I don't need to accuse you, I said, my voice rising. I saw you, Sophia, at the hotel. I know the air between us crackled with tension for a split second. I thought she might confess, drop the charade and tell the truth. But instead, she laughed. Not a nervous, guilty laugh, but a cruel hollow one that sent a chill down my spine. "You're pathetic," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "You think spying on me and throwing this tantrum makes you the hero grow up?" Ethan. Liam, straightened, taking a step forward. "Careful." He warned, his voice low, but I didn't need him to defend me. Her words lit a fire in me I didn't know I had. "Get out," I said, my voice steady and unyielding. Her eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me." "You heard me," I said. "You're not taking the kids and you're not staying here. Go back to your hotel or wherever you've been sneaking off to. But you're not welcome here for the first time." She hesitated. Her confidence wavered as she'd lost control of the narrative. "This isn't over," she said, finally, her voice low and dangerous. "No," I said, meeting her gaze. "It's not. But it's on my terms." Now, without another word, she turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Liam let out a low whistle. "Damn. Man, I didn't know you had that in you." Neither did I, watching her tail lights disappear down the street. I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Sophia tried every tactic in the book to regain control. Calls, texts, emails. Each one shifted between guilt, anger, and manipulation. But I was done playing her game. I started digging. Sophia always underestimated me, assuming I'd be too distracted or shattered to look deeper. But as it turns out, a decade of shared bank accounts, phone bills, and social media leaves a trail. Even the cleverest liar can't completely erase it. The first crack came from her credit card statement. Two charges stood out, like neon signs. One for the hotel I'd followed her to, and another at a high-end jewelry store. 2 towns over the date of the jewelry purchase. The same day, she claimed to be at a company retreat. I couldn't decide which was worse, the lies or the fact that she thought I wouldn't notice. Next, I checked her phone records. I had to call in a favor from a buddy who works in it. But it was worth it. One number popped up repeatedly, logged under the innocuous name Clara Work. Sophia doesn't work with anyone named Clara. I stared at the number for a long time before deciding to call it. "Hello," a man's voice answered. Deep, smooth, and entirely unfamiliar. I didn't say anything at first, letting the silence stretch. "Sophia?" he asked, his tone shifting to concern. I hung up. My hands shook, not from fear, but from rage that night as I sat stewing over everything I'd uncovered. Liam walked in with 2 beers and a knowing. "Look, how bad is it?" he asked, setting one in front of me. "Worse than I thought," I admitted, filling him in on what I'd found. He let out a low whistle. "What's your move?" "I'm not sure yet," I admitted, "but I'm not letting her skate by with this as if on cue." My phone buzzed again. Sophia. Of course. This time she'd sent a photo. It was of her hand holding a gold bracelet, but the kind of elegant, expensive piece. She'd always wanted. Her caption read, "Still think you know everything." I stared at the screen, anger simmering just below the surface. Liam leaned over, reading the text. "Show her. You're not playing games," he said, his voice calm but firm. He was right. If Sophia wanted to provoke me, she was about to find out exactly what happens when you push someone too far. Sophia's photo of the bracelet wasn't just a taunt. It was her way of saying I'm still in control. What she didn't realize was that I had moved past anger. This wasn't about reacting to her games anymore. It was about ending them that night. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, compiling everything I'd found so far. Credit card, charges, phone logs, and screenshots of her texts. It wasn't enough for just me to know the truth. I needed a plan to make sure she couldn't wriggle out of this. Liam walked in, leaning against the counter with a beer in hand. "What's next, Leverage?" I said without looking up. "She wants to play games. Fine. I'll hit her where it hurts." He raised an eyebrow. "You've got something in mind?" "Not yet." I admit, but I will. The next morning I drove to the jewelry store listed on our statement. Parking. A block away. I walked in. Like any other customer, a middle-aged woman behind the counter greeted me with a practiced smile. Looking for something special? She asked. Actually, I have a question, I said, pulling out a copy of Sophia's credit card statement. This purchase. It was made by my wife. I just need some clarification. Her smile faltered. I'm not sure I can disclose that information. Please, I said, lowering my voice. I'm just trying to understand. This is really important. She hesitated, then leaned closer. She came in with a man, she said, softly. Tall dark hair. Very charming. They picked out a bracelet together. He paid cash for part of it, and the rest went on her card. I clenched my fists under the counter. Do you remember what kind of bracelet? It was gold, she said, gesturing to her wrist. Very elegant. She seemed happy. The word hit like a punch to the gut. Thanks, I said, forcing a tight smile before walking out. Driving back to Liam's house, the pieces started falling into place. Sophia wasn't just cheating. She was building an entirely separate life. A life where I didn't exist. When I walked in, Liam was waiting. What did you find? She bought the bracelet with him, I said flatly. She wasn't even trying to hide it. He let out a low whistle. What are you going to do? I'm going to make her regret it later that evening. I called my lawyer, Rebecca. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. What's the update? She asked. I have more evidence, I said, filling her in on the jewelry store visit and the mysterious phone number. I need to make sure I'm ready for whatever she throws at me. Rebecca's tone was sharp and reassuring. You're in a wrong position, Ethan, but we'll need more financials witnesses. Anything that shows a pattern of behavior. I'll get it, I said after hanging up. I sat in silence for a moment, staring at the phone. If Sophia thought she could rewrite the narrative, she was about to learn how wrong she was. The next day, Liam walked into the kitchen, holding his phone. You're not going to believe this, he said, sliding it across the counter. Remember the number you called the guy Sophia's been talking to? What about him? Turns out he's married to. I froze. You're serious? Dead serious. His name's Nathan. Lives about 20 minutes away. Wife. 2 kids. The whole deal. My mind reeled. This wasn't just an affair. It was a web of lies. And Sophia wasn't the only one tangled in it. We need to tell his wife, I said. Liam nodded. You sure about that? She deserves to know, I said. And maybe she can help us that evening. I parked outside Nathan's house, my heart pounding. His wife answered the door. A blonde woman in her mid-30s, holding a toddler on her hip. Can I help you? She asked, her tone polite, but wary. My name's Ethan, I said. I think your husband is having an affair with my wife. Her eyes widened and the color drained from her face. What? I know this is a lot, I said quickly, but I have proof. If you want to talk, I'll show you everything. She hesitated, then stepped outside, closing the door behind her. Show me. I pulled out my phone, showing her the texts, phone logs and photos. She stared at the screen, her hands trembling. It's Sophia, isn't it? She whispered. You know her. She's been a friend of Nathan's for a while now, she said bitterly. I had my suspicions. But this, we talked for over an hour, piecing together the timeline of their affair. By the end, she was as determined as I was to confront them. I'll handle Nathan, she said, her voice steady. But if you're taking Sophia down, count me in. The plan was set. Sophia and Nathan thought they were untouchable, that their secrets would stay buried. But their house of cards was about to come crashing down. Sophia had been pestering me for days, demanding a meeting for the sake of the kids. I agreed, choosing a quiet park where we could talk. Meanwhile, Olivia arranged a similar meeting with Nathan under the guise of working things out. The day of the confrontation, Olivia, and I arrived separately. I parked a block away, watching as Sophia sat on a bench, scrolling through her phone. She didn't even look up as I approached. "Ethan," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Finally, can we talk like adults?" "Sure," I said. Let her talk before she could respond. Olivia appeared walking briskly toward us with Nathan in tow. His face was a mixture of confusion and irritation. Clearly, he hadn't been told the full story. "What's going on?" Sophia snapped her eyes, darting between me and Olivia. "This," I said, gesturing toward Olivia, "is the other person you've been lying to, and he." I pointed at Nathan as the man you've been sneaking around with. Sophia's face drained of color. "You've got to be kidding me." Olivia stepped forward, her voice icy. "We know everything, Sophia. The hotels, the bracelet, the late night calls. You thought you could keep this up forever." Nathan looked like a deer in headlights. "Olivia, this isn't what you think." "Shut up," Olivia snapped. "You don't get to talk." Sophia's composure cracked. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice rising. "Ethan, you're seriously dragging strangers into our personal business." "Strangers," I said, my voice calm. "You mean the man you've been sleeping with and his wife?" Her face twisted in anger. "What do you want, Ethan? You want me to gravel cry? Say I'm sorry?" "No," I said evenly. "I want accountability, and trust me, Sophia, you're going to get it as Olivia." And I walked away, leaving them standing there, exposed and defenseless. I felt a sense of satisfaction I hadn't experienced in weeks. It wasn't over, but the first cracks in their facade had appeared, and it wouldn't take much more to bring the whole thing down. Sophia didn't call me after the confrontation in the park for the first time in weeks. Her silence felt like a victory. I knew she was reeling, scrambling to figure out how much of her double life was exposed. Nathan, too, had gone quiet, likely dealing with Olivia's wrath. But silence didn't mean peace. I could feel the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Olivia and I kept in touch, sharing updates as we each prepared for what came next. She wasted no time filing for divorce, citing infidelity and emotional cruelty. Meanwhile, I focused on shoring up my own case, ensuring I had everything I needed to protect the kids and secure my position in court. Then, Sophia made her next move. It started with a courier-delivered letter to Liam's house. I opened the thick envelope to find a notice from her lawyer, a formal request for mediation, and a laundry list of demands. She wanted joint custody, half of our savings, and absurdly, a claim to Liam's property, because it had been used as a marital refuge. Liam read over my shoulder, his face raining with anger. "She wants my house. Is she out for mine?" "It's a scare tactic," Rebecca said later, when I showed her the letter. "She's trying to get you to panic and agree to our terms." "Don't. We've got her cornered, and she knows it." But Sophia wasn't done. The very next day, she showed up, unannounced at Liam's house, banging on the door like she had every right to be there. Liam opened the door just far enough to glare at her. "You've got some nerve showing up here. Where's Ethan?" she snapped, trying to push past him. I walked into the room, forcing myself to stay calm. "Sophia, what do you want?" She rounded on me, her eyes blazing. "You think you can just throw me under the bus and walk away clean?" she hissed. "You've turned this into a circus, Ethan." "For what?" "Your pride." "For the truth," I said, evenly. "Something you've avoided for years." Her anger flared, but she forced a smile. "You're pathetic. You can play the victim all you want. But don't forget, I know you. I know every mistake, every weakness. You think you're untouchable, but you're not." Her words were meant to intimidate, but they only steel at my resolve. "Get out, Sophia," Liam said, stepping between us before I called the cops. She glared at him, then at me before storming out. The sound of her car screeching down the street was almost satisfying. Rebecca called me later that evening with news that bolstered my confidence. "We've got her," she said, triumphantly. "The financials, the file records, The photos. It's airtight and Lydia's testimony seals the deal. The judge will see right through her. The relief was palpable. But I knew better than to celebrate too soon. Sophia was a master manipulator, and I wouldn't underestimate her. Again, the weeks leading up to mediation were tense. Sophia ramped up her attacks, posting dramatic rants on social media that painted me as a controlling husband who had blindsided her with divorce. Friends and acquaintances reached out, some to offer support, others fishing for gossip. I ignored it. All Olivia, however, wasn't as reserved. She's trying to rewrite history. She said during one of our phone calls. But people are seeing through it. I've had more than one friend message me, saying they always suspected something was off about her. Let her burn herself out, I said. The more she overplays her hand, the better it is for us. The day of mediation arrived, and Sophia walked into the room with all the poise of someone who thought she already won. Dressed in a sleek black suit and flanked by her high-priced attorney. She exuded confidence, but I could see the cracks. Her tight jaw, the way her eyes darted around the room. She was bracing for a fight. She knew she might not win the mediator. The calm woman named Miss Howell opened the session with introductions. Let us begin, she said, gesturing for Sophia's lawyer to state their position. He leaned forward, radiating smugness. My client seeks an amicable resolution that ensures the well-being of the children, while maintaining fairness in the division of assets. Sophia wanted the house, the money, and my time with the kids. Rebecca didn't flinch. My client has evidence that Mrs. Roberts is engaged in behavior detrimental to the marriage, including infidelity and financial misconduct, she said, sliding a folder across the table. Sophia's lawyer opened it, his face blanching as he scanned the contents. Inside was everything. The photos, the texts, the phone logs, and Olivia's not or I's statement. This is ridiculous. Sophia snapped her composure, slipping. None of that has anything to do with custody. Oh, but it does, Rebecca countered. Your actions demonstrate a pattern of deceit and irresponsibility, which directly impacts your fitness as a parent. Sophia's eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Rebecca slid a second folder across the table. And then there's this. Her lawyer hesitated before opening it. His expression turned grim as he read through the documents. Bank statements showing unexplained withdrawals, charges to private accounts, and a 5-0 transfer to an account in Nathan's name. Sophia's face twisted in fury. What the hell is this? Ethan, your financial trail, I said. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Her lawyer leaned toward her, whispering furiously. But Sophia wasn't listening. She was too focused on glaring at me, her mask slipping completely. This is a setup, she spat. You're trying to ruin me. No, I said, calmly. You did that on your own. The mediator sided with me, recommending I retain full custody of the kids, the house, and the majority of our savings. Sophia's financial claims were dismissed due to her misuse of funds, and her visitation rights were limited to supervised sessions. We left the room. Sophia caught up to me in the hallway. You think you've won? She hissed. No, I said, meeting her gaze. The kids won, and I'm going to make sure they never lose again. For the first time in months, I felt like I was on solid ground. Sophia's lies and manipulations had crumbled, leaving her with nothing but the wreckage of her own. Making the day after mediation, life felt different. There wasn't a moment of celebration. This wasn't a victory in the traditional sense. But as I sat at the breakfast table with the kids, their laughter filling the kitchen, I felt a sense of peace that had been absent for years. The house was no longer a battleground. It was becoming a home. Again, Sophia's presence had always lingered, even when she wasn't physically there. Her manipulations, her schemes, her lies, they had cast a shadow over every corner of my life. But now, with the court's decision, that shadow was starting to lift. The kids adapted to the new normal faster than I expected at first. I worried they might feel the absence of their mother more acutely. But they surprised me. Our youngest, Mia asked a few times when she would see Mommy again, and I reassured her that the visits were scheduled and she'd have plenty of time to spend with her. But as the weeks passed, Mia's questions lessened. Instead, she focused on school, her friends, and her new favorite pastime, helping me cook. Dad, can we make pancakes again? She asked one Saturday morning, her eyes lighting up. Absolutely, I said, grinning. We turned the kitchen into a chaotic mess of flour and batter, but the laughter that echoed through the house made every cleanup worth it. My oldest son, Noah, seemed to adjust even more seamlessly. He threw himself into sports, and I made sure to be at every game. There was something rewarding about watching him on the field, knowing I was there for him in a way that Sophia had never been while the kids. And I moved forward. Sophia was spiraling. Her attempts to regain control grew increasingly desperate. She started showing up at the kids' school, unannounced, a clear violation of the ordered visitation schedule. The first time it happened, I kept my composure. Sophia, I said, firmly meeting her at the edge of the playground. You know the rules. I just wanted to see them, she said, her voice dripping with false innocence. They're my kids. To Ethan. You have scheduled visitation, I reminded her. This isn't helping. Her face twisted with anger, but she backed off. When the school's principal intervened that night, I documented the incident and sent it to Rebecca. We'll add this to the file, she said. It's only going to help you in the long run. Sophia didn't stop there. She started posting vague accusations on social media, painting herself as the victim of a controlling ex-husband. Friends and acquaintances sent me screenshots, but I ignored them. Her words no longer held the power to hurt me. They were just noise, and I refused to let them distract me from what mattered: my kids. Olivia. And I stayed in touch. She had fully embraced her role as Nathan's ex-wife and was thriving in her newfound independence. One evening, she called me, her voice filled with a mix of amusement and exasperation. You're not going to believe this, she said. What? Now Sophia's been reaching out to Nathan, she explained. She's trying to blame you for everything, saying you ruined her life. Laughed bitterly. That sounds about right. Did he take the bait? Not this time, Olivia said. He blocked her. I think he's finally realized she's not worth the trouble he ran. That brought a grim sense of satisfaction. Sophia's web of lies was unraveling faster than she could spin it, and even her former co-conspirator was done with her. Despite Sophia's chaos, I was determined to create a stable, happy life for the kids. We fell into a routine. School drop-offs, homework sessions, movie nights. I even agreed to adopt a dog, a floppy-eared MUT. The kid's name, Buddy. He quickly became the heart of the house. His boundless energy and unconditional love, a constant reminder of the good things in life. One evening, as I tucked Mia into bed, she looked up at me with wide, curious eyes. Dad, do you think Mommy's sad? The question caught me off guard. Oh, why do you ask? Sweetie. She looked sad. Last time I saw her, Mia said. Like really sad. I paused, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups go through tough times, I said. But that doesn't mean it's your job to make them happy. Your job is to be a kid and have fun. She nodded, satisfied with the answer, and drifted off to sleep. I sat by her bed for a while, thinking about how much had changed. The kids were resilient, and their ability to find joy in the midst of chaos inspired me. One night after the kids were asleep, Liam and I sat on the porch, beers in hand. The air was crisp and the stars were unusually bright. You've come a long way, Liam said, breaking. The comfortable silence feels like it, I replied, taking a sip of my drink. But there's still a long road ahead. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. Yes, he said with a shrug. But you're handling it for the first time in months. I believed him. Sophia's manipulations had once dictated every aspect of my life. But now I was in control. The kids were happy. The house was peaceful and I was starting to feel like myself. Again, As I sat there, watching the stars, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Hoped the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was hours to walk. And for the first time, I was excited to see where it led. The weeks passed and the quiet felt foreign for years. Sophia's presence, even in her absence, had filled every space with tension. Now, the stillness was a relief. The kids had settled into the new rhythm, and I finally felt like we were building something stable for the first time in a long time. I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. Sophia, however, wasn't letting go so easily. She continued her antics, sending texts that alternated between angry and pleading. One night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was her. Of course, you'll regret this. I didn't even feel the usual spark of irritation. I ignored it and set the phone down, focusing instead on the book I was reading to Mia. Buddy was curled up at her feet, his soft snoring adding to the sense of calm that had finally returned to our lives. The next day, I got a call from Rebecca. She's filed an appeal, she said, her tone calm but firm. She's claiming you're alienating the kids from her. Of course, she is, I said, barely surprised. What's her argument this time? She's citing her limited visitation and claiming it's damaging her relationship with the kids. But don't worry, we've got enough to shut this down. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. I felt the familiar wave of stress creeping back, but I didn't let it consume me. This was just another hurdle and I was ready for it. In the meantime, Sophia made her desperation more apparent. She showed up at Noah's soccer game, unannounced, positioning herself by the sidelines with an air of entitlement. Noah noticed her immediately and glanced at me, his expression uncertain. Go play, I said, giving him a reassuring nod. I'll handle it. I approached Sophia, keeping my tone neutral. You can't be here. I had every right to watch my son play, she said, crossing her arms defiantly. You have visitation rights, I corrected. This isn't part of the agreement. She glared at me, but I didn't back down. You're only making this harder for yourself, I said quietly, ensuring no one nearby could hear. Go home, Sophia. She stormed off her heels, clicking against the pavement. Noah played one of his best games that day, scoring twice. I clapped and cheered with the other parents, my focus entirely on him. Rebecca's confidence in the upcoming hearing gave me some peace of mind. She gathered everything we needed. Sophia's erratic behavior, her unscheduled visits, and her inability to adhere to the court's orders. Olivia even agreed to testify. Again, determined to help shut down Sophia's latest scheme. The day of the hearing, I sat in the courtroom, my hands steady, and my mind clear. Sophia arrived with her lawyer, her expression smug, as if she believed this would be her grand comeback. She wore a carefully tailored outfit, her hair styled to perfection, and sat with an air of superiority that made my stomach turn. Her lawyer argued, passionately, painting Sophia as a devoted mother who was being unjustly kept away from her children. He cited the texts and calls she'd made, twisting them into evidence of her love and concern. But Rebecca was ready. She presented every misstep. Sophia had made her unscheduled appearances, her threatening texts, and even her social media posts attacking me. Olivia's testimony was the final blow. She described Sophia's relationship with Nathan, the lies and the chaos it had caused when Rebecca asked if Sophia had made any attempts to repair the damage she'd done. Olivia shook her head firmly. No, she said, her voice steady. She's been more focused on blaming everyone else than taking responsibility for her actions. Sophia shifted in her seat, her composure cracking. Her lawyer objected, but the judge allowed Olivia to continue. By the time she stepped down, Sophia looked visibly shaken. The judge's ruling was swift and decisive. She denied Sophia's appeal, reinforcing the original custody agreement and warning her against further violations. The gavel fell and it was over. Sophia didn't look at me as we left the courtroom. I saw her speaking in hushed tones with her lawyer, her face tight with anger. For the first time, I felt no need to engage, no desire to confront her. She was fighting a battle she'd already lost, and I was done being a part of it that evening. I sat on the porch with Liam, a beer in hand. The kids were inside playing a game with Buddy, barking excitedly. In the background, "You did it," Liam said, raising his bottle. "It's not about winning," I said. This happened when I was in the first or second year at junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. I couldn't deny the relief washing over me. It's about peace, and for the first time in years, I felt like we had it. The storm that Sophia had created was finally subsiding, leaving behind the promise of something new, something better. The morning after the final ruling felt like stepping into a different world. The sky seemed brighter, the air lighter, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't wake up bracing for a fight. The kids were already up when I walked into the kitchen, their laughter filling the space as they argued over who got the last pancake. Buddy was wagging his tail excitedly at their feet, waiting for someone to drop a piece. I leaned against the doorway, watching them. This was what I'd been fighting for. Not the court battles or the confrontations, but this peace, stability. A home where they could be themselves, without the weight of tension and drama hanging over them. After breakfast, we headed to the park. The kids ran ahead with Buddy, their laughter echoing across the open field as they raced into the playground. I sat on a bench, watching them climb and swing, feeling a rare sense of contentment. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. I wasn't letting anything disrupt this moment. When we got back home, I finally checked my phone. There was a single message from Sophia. "You may have won in court, but this isn't over." I stared at the screen for a moment before deleting the text. Let her think whatever she wanted. Her words didn't hold any power over me anymore that evening. As the kids settled in for movie night, I took a moment to reflect. The road to this point had been anything but smooth. There had been moments of doubt, anger, and exhaustion. But looking at my kids' faces as they giggled at the screen, I knew it had been worth it. Liam came over later with a six-pack plopping down on the couch beside me. "How does it feel?" he asked, cracking open a beer. "Like I can finally breathe," I said, taking a sip. "But there's still a part of me that wonders when the other shoe's going to drop." "She's out moves," Liam said, confidently. "She tried everything and it didn't work. She'll eventually have to accept that." "Maybe," I said. This happened when I was in the first or second year at junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. I wasn't entirely convinced. Sophia had a way of finding cracks to exploit, and I knew better than to let my guard down completely in the weeks that followed. Life settled into a new rhythm. The kids adjusted remarkably well. Their questions about their mom growing less frequent. I made a point to keep things positive, assuring them that she loved them, even if she wasn't around as much. They didn't need the weight of her choices on their shoulders. One day, while cleaning out the garage, I came across a box of old photo albums. Curious, I sat down and flipped through them. There were pictures of Sophia and me from our early days, smiling, carefree, and full of hope. A part of me felt a pang of sadness for what we'd lost, but as I turned the pages, I realized how much I'd gained. Those pictures were a reminder of a life that no longer existed. The person I was then didn't know the strength he'd need to find or the battles he'd have to fight. But sitting there, surrounded by dusty boxes and old memories, I felt grateful. Not for the pain, but for the clarity it had brought me that evening. The kids and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Mia leaned her head against my shoulder, her small hand resting on Buddy's fur. "Do you think Mom's okay?" she asked softly. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "I think she's figuring things out, just like we are." She nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "I like it here," she said. "After a while, it feels like home." Her words stayed with me long after the kids had gone to bed. This house, this life we were building, it was ours now. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in years, I felt like we were on solid ground. Sophia's chaos still lingered at the edges, but it no longer consumed me. Her texts became less frequent. Her attempts to provoke me losing their sting. I focused on the things that mattered. The kids, my work, and the small joys that came with starting fresh. One afternoon, I got a call from Olivia. "You won't believe this," she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "What's up?" "Nathan tried to reach out to me," she said, some half-hearted apology and a request to meet up. "Can you believe the nerve?" I laughed, shaking my head. "What did you say?" "I told him exactly where he could shout his apology," she said with a chuckle. "I'm done with that chapter." "Good for you," I said. "You deserve better." "So do you," she said, her tone softening. "I hope you're finding that." "I think I am," I said, meaning it for the first time. I felt like I was moving forward, not just away from the past, but toward something better as the weeks turned into months. The shadows of Sophia's betrayal grew fainter. I started taking photography classes, a hobby I'd always been curious about, but never made time for the kids. And I planned a summer road trip, something we'd never done before. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours one evening. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I stood in the backyard with my camera. The kids were chasing Buddy around the yard, their laughter filling the air. I framed the shot and clicked, capturing a moment that felt like the culmination of everything we'd been through. When I looked at the photo, I saw not just a beautiful sunset, but a family that had weathered the storm and come out stronger for the first time in a long time. I felt at peace. This was our life now. Imperfect, messy, and beautiful. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Here's the next story. Daniel's on the couch, trying to digest what Sophia had just told him. His mind raced. A month-long working vacation overseas. Sounds frightening. Sophia clarified that her supervisor assigned her a critical project that required tight supervision. Daniel felt both proud and uncomfortable. They hadn't spent so much time apart since their wedding. 4 years ago, the couple, now in their late 20s, resided in a quaint rental on the outskirts of Willow Creek, Oregon's small but thriving city. It wasn't luxurious, but it was home. Daniel and Sophia were both ambitious, career-driven individuals, working hard to save enough money for a down payment on their first home. Their common objective had always been to lay a firm basis for their future, and despite their hectic schedules, their bond seemed indestructible, at least until recently. Daniel had seen Sophia's gradual changes over the last few months. She'd become more focused on her profession, frequently staying late at work or volunteering for extra responsibilities. "What's with this sudden push?" Daniel inquired one evening, his tone half joking, but tinged with curiosity. Sophia smirked and tilted her head. "Oh, I simply want to stay up with you, Mr. High Achiever," she teased, her eyes gleaming. He grinned, dismissing it as light-hearted banter. But now, as he watched her pack with a determined look, her actions, precise, almost clinical, he couldn't shake the notion that her determination was deeper than she outlined. Sophia was always ambitious, but this seemed different. She spoke at length about how her recent efforts had finally been recognized and how important this project was to her career. She also mentioned that success here could lead to more chances. Daniel felt a surge of pride. Despite his doubts, her dedication was one of the reasons he had always been drawn to her. So he quipped, "Should I start getting used to being a house husband once you become C?" Sophia rolled her eyes and laughed. "Don't become too comfy. But by the time I get back, you'll be telling everyone that your wife is Carson Industries' golden girl." Her sense of fun and confidence were contagious, and Daniel smiled as she hugged him for a little period. He felt relieved that everything would be fine. Alex found the morning of Sophia's departure bittersweet week before zipping her perfectly packed luggage shut. She double-checked it to be sure her passport and other essentials were all in there. "Spain," Alex murmured, leaning against the doorway, with a slight smile. "A month. This seems like a dream." Sophia looked at him, wiping a piece of hair off her face. "It won't be as glamorous as it sounds," Lots of meetings and late nights. I probably won't have time to explore. So if you get the chance, take some photos, Daniel said, attempting to hide a small sting of jealousy in his heart. Visiting Spain had always been one of his fantasies, but time and money had never allowed it. Sophia smiled and her demeanor softened. I will bring you something wonderful. Perhaps a taste of the culture. They had a lengthy kiss at the entrance door. Good luck, Daniel whispered, holding her hand. Thanks, she said. Love you, giving him one last look before leaving with her things. Alex spent the first week without Sophia in calm routine, filling the silence of their little home with music and podcasts, but the emptiness was difficult to ignore. They sent a few texts back and forth with Sophia, providing quick updates on her workload and how busy she was. He was relieved to hear from her, even if he missed her more than he had expected with Sophia gone for the weekend. Alex decided to make a major grocery run. On Saturday morning, he had left the fridge almost completely empty. He drove across town to one of the larger supermarkets and went through the aisles, methodically, marking off items on his list. His thoughts returned to their home. The quiet evenings in the bed that seemed too huge without her. He was so lost in thinking that he didn't recognize a familiar voice calling his name. Alex, hey. He was surprised to see Heather, an old college acquaintance, who was usually full of energy and life. Heather. Wow, it's been ages, Daniel replied, smiling as he approached her. How have you been? Great, Heather said, adjusting her shopping basket on her arm. I just returned from Miami. It's funny that I ran into you. Are you already back? Daniel frowned. PZL. Where have you returned from? Heather tilted her head, perplexed. Miami. I saw Sophia there a few days ago. She was with someone. Perhaps a coworker. She claimed you were down there with some pals to unwind. Alex's smile faded, but he quickly forced it back. Oh, right. Yeah. I'd been preoccupied with work since we returned. Heather nodded, compassionately. So don't overwork yourself. It was lovely to see her. And it's also great to run into you. Take care, Alex. She gave him a short wave before disappearing down another aisle, leaving Daniel stuck. Miami. Sophia was meant to be in Spain. His mind raced as he drove home. Heather's remarks echoed with every turn of the steering wheel. It's Miami, not Spain. With someone else. He attempted to rationalize it. Maybe it was a quick work detour, or Heather was mistaken. But the anxious knot of his stomach didn't go away that evening. Daniel couldn't get rid of the nagging feeling that something was wrong. He stayed up late, browsing through social media and reviewing previous communications, looking for any hints that could explain what Heather had said by Monday morning. His nerves had strained. He required answers. By Monday, Daniel could not take it anymore. The nagging suspicion had become too loud to ignore. After pacing around the living room for what seemed like hours, he decided to phone Sophia's office. But he realized he couldn't simply call her husband. He had to be smart about it. Alex took a deep breath, dialed the number and waited for the line to connect. Good morning to Carson Industries. How can I help you? A cheery voice greeted us. Alex lowered his voice, attempting to appear casual. Hi, I'm an old Sophia client. We lost touch, and I hope to reconnect. Could you please transfer me to her? There was a brief silence at the other end. Oh, sorry. Sophia is now on personal leave. She is supposed to return in roughly 3 weeks. Daniel felt his heart skip a beat. Oh, I did not realize. Is everything okay? Oh, yes, the receptionist said, pleasantly. She explained that her spouse had damaged his leg and that she would be taking some time off to assist him heal. That was very nice of her. May I leave a message? Alex's grasp on the phone tightened and his knuckles grew white. No, there's no message. Thank you. He managed to say anything before suddenly ending the call. He dropped into the nearest chair, his thoughts racing. 3 weeks personal leave, neither Spain nor work. She had told her office that she was at home with him caring for him, due to a non-existent injury. That was a lie, a flawlessly executed airtight deception. Daniel felt a rush of rage swelling in his chest. Heather's story from Miami. And now this. They couldn't have both been coincidences. The more he considered it, the clearer it seemed. Sophia had devised an intricate cover to conceal something. Something she did not want him to find out. But his initial instinct was to call her right away and demand explanations. But he stopped himself. Sophia was intelligent and he knew she would respond. Prepare a fresh story to spin. Without proof, she'd manipulate the conversation to her advantage, leaving him with nothing but further mistrust. No, he needed to be strategic. He required undeniable evidence before addressing her the following day. Daniel left work early. His mind was already set on his next move. He scanned the internet for the finest rated divorce attorneys in Willow Creek, eventually settling on the website of a practice led by James Carter. Within an hour, Daniel was seated across from him, relating the unusual occurrences of the previous week. James listened closely, his piercing eyes locked on Alex. As he spoke, he took occasional notes on his legal pad, but did not interrupt when Daniel concluded. James leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. You have a few choices here. Alex, he began in a measured tone. If you are positive there is infidelity, you could wait until you have concrete evidence. Concrete evidence will help you win your case in court and may impact asset distribution. Alex nodded, but it was because he was thinking about waiting. What is the alternative? James flashed a little smile, as if anticipating the inquiry. You move quickly to protect what matters most based on what you've told me. The main problem is the joint savings account. You've been setting up for a property. If we transfer those monies to an account entirely in your name, we can assure they are secure. Once that is completed, we can file for divorce, leaving her with little leverage. When she returns, Alex thought about this for a bit. The weight of the decision was pressing on him. The money reflected years of hard labor and sacrifice. I cannot lose that money, he stated firmly. I have worked too hard for it. James nodded. Let's establish a plan over the next few days. Alex meticulously followed James's instructions. He spent hours poring over their finances, methodically transferring monies to a second account while keeping the procedure a secret each step. However, nerve-wracking gave him a sensation of control. Something he hadn't felt since Sophia's departure. By the end of the week, everything was in order. The savings were secure, and James had written divorce papers. Now all that remained was to wait for Sophia's return. But Daniel was just sitting around. He needed answers and was determined to get them the day Sophia returned. It was crisp and sunny, in stark contrast to the storm developing in Alex's mind. She stepped out of the cab with a bright smile on her luggage in tow. Her complexion was lightly tanned, and she appeared more calm than she had in months. Walking, approached the front entrance of their Willow Creek home. She rehearsed her lines about how tiring the work trip had been and how little time she'd had to enjoy Spain. As she approached the door, she observed something unusual. An automobile she didn't recognize was parked in the driveway. Maybe Daniel has a guest, she mumbled, brushing it aside. She took out her keys and reached for the lock. But before she could open, it swung open. A woman in her late 30s stood at the doorway, her demeanor serene yet knowing. An adolescent lad stood beside her, holding a skateboard. The woman's eyes were an odd combination of warmth and sympathy. "How you must be Sophia." The woman spoke in a warm yet forceful tone. Sophia blinked briefly, disoriented. "Yes, who are you? And what are you doing in my house?" The woman smiled. "Oh, my name is Lisa. And this is my son, Noah. Daniel mentioned that you would be stopping by to pick up your belongings." Sophia's stomach dropped and her grip on her suitcase tightened. "Pick up my belongings," she repeated, her voice shaky. Lisa stepped aside, pointing to the hallway we moved in just a few days ago. "It's such a beautiful location." Alex ensured that everything was ready for us. Sophia's suitcase thudded to the ground, her mind raced. "Moved in? What exactly are you talking about?" Lisa tilted her head, her voice softening slightly. "Alex terminated the lease last week. He felt it was best to make a clean break." Sophia's heart raced as she fumbled for her phone. She called Alex. "Number." Her hands shook. She waited for it to ring. He picked up on the third ring. His voice was calm and steady. "Sophia," he said. Plainly. "Alex," she burst out. "What is happening? There's a stranger in our house who says you've ended the lease." "What's this?" Alex's voice remained almost detached. I felt it was time for a fresh start. Lisa and her son required a location, and this house no longer felt like home for me. "What?" Sophia's voice crackled. "Alex, you cannot. Just." "I can," he interrupted. "So I did. Your belongings are in the garage. Oh, and there's a folder on the passenger seat in your car. It contains the divorce papers. You might want to look them over." Sophia was unable to respond as the line clicked. She dialed again, but the call did not go through. He blocked. Her legs felt like they were about to give out. As she turned to Lisa, who watched her with silent sympathy, Lisa said, gently, "Your things are all packed." "Packed? I hope you find what you're searching for." Sophia stumbled towards the garage, her vision blurred by tears. When she opened the door, she discovered a few neatly packed boxes on her car seat, including a folder labeled "Divorce Papers" in bold black letters. She grabbed the folder with trembling hands and flipped it open. The legal jargon was confusing, but the message was clear. Daniel had moved on, and she had been left behind. Sophia sat in her car, staring blankly at the divorce papers. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages, tears streaming down her face. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The man, she thought. She could manipulate the man. She thought she had under control, had completely topplayed her. She fumbled for her phone, scrolling through her contacts, and called her closest friend. "Sarah." "Sophia." Sarah's voice came through the line. "Woman concerned, Sarah. I don't know where to go." "Alex." He stumbled something insane. Sophia's voice cracked, the weight of her emotions pressing down on her. "Calm down," Sarah said, gently. "Come over. We'll figure this out." Sophia drove to Sarah's apartment, the familiar streets of Willow Creek blurring through her tears. When she arrived, Sarah greeted her with a hug and ushered her inside. Over the next hour, Sophia recounted the surreal events from Lisa's appearance to the discovery of the divorce papers. "Do you think he knows about?" Sophia trailed off, her voice barely a whisper. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Miami." Sophia nodded, her face pale. Sarah sighed. "If he does, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get messy." Meanwhile, Daniel was far from idle later that evening. He met up with a few old college friends at a local bar. The group hadn't seen each other in months, and the atmosphere was light, full of laughter and reminiscing. But beneath Alex's calm exterior, his thoughts remained sharp, focused on what he uncovered, and the plan he had set in motion. One of his friends, Liam, excused himself to use the restroom as he walked away. Daniel noticed something strange. Liam had a deep tan, his skin glowing as if he just spent weeks lounging on a beach. "Liam's looking unusually tropical," Daniel joked to Nathan, another friend at the table. Nathan laughed. "Yeah, monsieur. He's been on some trip recently. Didn't say much about it. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. I think he went to Miami." "Miami." Alex's head snapped up at the mention of Miami, his mind racing. "Miami," he repeated. "Yeah," Nathan said, casually taking a sip of his drink. "Not sure who he went with, but he's been acting a little weird about it." Alex's jaw hardened. Could Liam have been Sophia's companion in Miami? The timing lined up to perfectly when Liam returned. Daniel kept his tone light. "So Miami. You've got to tell me about it. Thinking of taking a trip myself." Liam chuckled uneasily, shrugging it aside. "Oh, you know, just the normal beaches, beverages. Nothing remarkable." "Come on," Daniel pressed, pretending curiosity. "Show me some photographs. I need motivation for my future trip." Liam hesitated, staring at his phone. "I didn't snap many pictures." Nathan smirked. "Yeah, right. Liam never goes any place without posting about it under the group's light-hearted strain. Liam finally unlocked his phone and opened his gallery. Daniel leaned over, nonchalantly, his heart hammering as Liam browsed. Alex, glimpsed flashes of the truth he had dreaded yet. Expected photos of Sophia and Liam together on the beach. Sophia laughs, while holding a martini. The two of them were seated together at a beachside pub. Their smiles were far too personal for merely pals. Alex's gut churned, but his face remained impassive. "Do you mind if I have a look?" Daniel inquired, waving toward the phone before Liam could respond. Daniel snatched it and immediately forwarded many incriminating images to his phone number. "Hey," Liam objected, reaching for the phone, but Nathan and the others chuckled, as if it was all in good fun. Daniel threw the phone back, his voice frigid. "Thank you for your trip ideas." The table grew silent as the stress in Alex's tone became apparent. Liam's face became pallid that night. Daniel examined the evidence he had obtained. The photographs and messages verified what he had suspected all along. Sophia hadn't simply lied to him. She had deceived him entirely. Daniel delivered the images and messages at their court hearing. The next week, the judge reacted quickly, ruling heavily in Alex's favor. Sophia's betrayal left her with little to no leverage, and the financial assets she sought to claim were held in Alex's name. Epilogue. Sophia's life, following her divorce, was a ghost of what it had been. Her reputation was in ruins, and her social circle had nearly vanished. Her brief affair with Liam crumbled under the pressure of public scrutiny and mutual sorrow. However, Daniel found himself on a path of rejuvenation. He concentrated on his profession and friendships, eventually finding happiness again. A year later, Daniel stood in his new home's kitchen, with the gentle glow of the sunset coming through the windows. Rachel, his new companion that had brightened his life, stood by him, leaving the hurts of the past behind. They laughed together and spoke about the future. The betrayal that had previously consumed Daniel was now just a memory, acting as a reminder of his progress and the possibility of better things in the future. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened.